not a lot of people here. Been gone for 1 week and already no people. Well, hopefully someone's gonna come. Hopefully the stream's all good. Yeah, I have some hints here from the community. Again, it's the first time I do anything poker related in a week and something because I've been in the mountains. That being said, hopefully I'm not that rusty and I'll manage to do a proper hand review. So let's get into it. First hand, we open small blind with a7 suited, pretty standard. We get 3-bet by big blind, and this hand is going to be a mix. It will get 4-bet sometimes, it will get called sometimes. I don't think we ever fold it, although you could make an argument for folding if our opponents are really tight and 3-betting too linear, but mostly we want to call all the suited a6 in these positions. So we call in this hand, the board is 10-5-4, we check, and he bets half pot. Here, it's quite interesting. Again, it really depends on villain. If we're playing lower stakes with some of these tighter guys, I think this hand becomes much closer. Usually, we should probably continue by calling. I think some check raising might make sense with the backdoors. We also have an ace, which, you know, we can turn better pair against overcards if he doesn't end up 3-betting, and also if we get 3-bet with this hand, we don't really care. We can just fold. So I could see some check raising here, which we do, but yeah, I think it would be quite low frequency. He calls and turn is a deuce. Now, is this turn good for us? This is the first thing we should think about. What frequency we should bet here, and that will depend, of course, on how many hands in our range this improves. We don't really have 3-7. We don't really have 5 deuce or 4 deuce, although if we had them, they would make for decent check raises on the flop. And then we do have some ace-3, but not all that much. So yeah, this card not great for us, not great for him either. If we had something like, you know, a good 10, we can probably continue here. So yeah, this hand, considering it has a gut shot now, could probably continue, but yeah, we block backdoor flush draws and we don't really have any kind of equity. We probably have better hands to continue here with, like 6-7 if we check raise that. What else? Random 5, let's say if we had 5-6, we could continue with that. Or if we check raise some clubs, I guess that would also be better. But yeah, we'll check this hand with the solver later. Hola, hola, Jose. Estoy bien, ¿y tú? Here we decide to continue for 1/3, I guess this is. Maybe, yeah, 1/3. I guess the sizing's fine. This will allow us to continue our 10x as well. And he shoves, pretty easy fold. So yeah, what I would say here is I like that we do find an out-of-the-box check raise on the flop, even though we are going to, even if we're gonna open the solver and we're gonna see maybe that's not the best check raise, if he's c-betting more than he should, then it's gonna make for a much better check raise. Also, on the other hand, if he's not 3-betting enough and being much tighter, it's gonna be a much worse check raise. So, as always, solver won't give us all the answers, but I think it's still useful to see how theory works in this spot. What's going on? Sorry guys. Not sure what's the problem with this. Okay, now it works. Just needed a bit of Romanian restarting. So we're looking for 3-bet pot, blind versus blind. And the board is 10. 5, 4. Okay, we see some donking here. I wouldn't have this strategy, but you know, the more I think about donks, the more it seems like people would play quite terrible against them. Not really finding enough raises or calls, I would assume. So it might be worth implementing, but for now, let's just take this out. We see we should face a slightly bigger bet, a more polar range. Our opponent bets half pot here. And we see he should only bet 48% of the times. Again, in this blind versus blind 3-bet spots, it's going to be quite difficult to figure out exactly what the strategy should be because people are going to have ranges that differ quite a lot in practice, I would say. And we see if we do go for a check raise, we want to use a small size. As for our range, you see our value is constructed around 10x. The better the 10x, the more we want to raise, pretty much. And then our bluffs are going to be these 2 overcards plus backdoor straight draw, backdoor flush draw. We see queen jack makes it in there. I think king queen, king jack a bit less because in this configuration they just have a bit more showdown value, but you see that gets in there as well. And then these lower pairs sometimes, although not that much, and we see this again, backdoor straight draw, backdoor flush draw plus an ace. It's also going to get raised quite often, and this gut shot ace deuce that can't really call. So this makes sense. Good to find the check raise here. Of course, just remember that here, against this strategy, we raise 15% of the times. But I don't think it's going to be extremely uncommon to face an opponent who plays like this. So bets range, and now we see we basically don't have to call at all, and we should check raise everything. This is an extreme scenario, and I don't think we should play like this. I just wanted to do this quickly to illustrate, you know, how much villain strategy can influence what we are supposed to do. Okay, so let's add the check option back and see how the rest of the hand is supposed to go. Turn was a deuce, offsuit. And now we see we actually continue this pure. And we continue a6 a bit less. I'm not sure why this is. Maybe we want to put that into double check raise line. Though I would be quite surprised. So anyway, as I assumed, we can still continue for a small size, you know, our good 10x, and then some of our bluffs. This does have some equity, these two, so yeah, would probably expect a6 here to bet more than ace8. So we do bet. We face a shove, and obviously it's going to be a fold all the time. Okay, so without any reads that we know, or we have right now, I don't think we can go deeper into, you know, analyzing maybe what's the best way to play this hand against this opponent, this particular opponent, because we don't know who the opponent is. Next hand, just let's switch. Okay. We face an open from the button to 2.5x. This hand will be a very frequent 3-bet, but yeah, not all the time, so calling is fine too. I think I would personally 3-bet it in this position like 75% of the times or so, but also call. We face a small bet on ace 4-5. This board is really not great for imposition. The reason being a lot of his overcards miss, every like king queen, queen jacks, 10, 10 9, stuff like that, they all miss. And he also doesn't have the deuce 3, which of course we probably don't have full frequency either. But yeah, it connects a bit better with the lower end of the range. So he's not doing terrible, but he also should lower his batting frequency by quite a bit. So when you are in this spot, I think most villains still tend to see bet too often. Therefore, check raising here quite aggressively works well with bluffs, with value hands too, because they bet too thin for value. So yeah, this hand quite an easy check raise. Here the sizing might seem quite big, but on ace high board what you see is usually polar check raising. We don't really want to check raise, under pairs or a low ace x all that frequently. Therefore we want to use a big size. We get call and turn is a king. Yeah, interesting spot here, because now if you think of our flop check raising range, of course we're gonna have some deuce 3, which is still the nut, and we're gonna have some sets which are still super super strong, but overall now our hands like ace 4, ace 5, 4 5 lose quite a lot of value, and we have really a net disadvantage because we never have aces, we never have kings, we never have ace king. Well, almost all the netted hands except for deuce 3 that we have, he can also have here. So I think our betting frequency should be quite low now, and we should start being quite careful. Therefore, I think we should also start checking some value hands. 4-5 though, I think it has a nice property of, blocking hands that beat us like ace 4, ace 5, and sets, and also unblocking pretty much all the ace x that would still call one street and we beat. So I imagine this hand is going to mix I would say, yeah, not a pure bet, not a pure check, but because our betting frequency would generally be low, I assume, we're going to bet it at a low to medium frequency. But we're gonna check if I'm right. Let me know, my few viewers here, what do you think, if we're going to bet this hand often here or not really? Goes check check, and river is a 4. At this point, I think it gets quite interesting, because when we check raise the flop, I think 4 deuce, 4 3, 4 5, as you see here, are decent check raises. We would probably check them often on the turn, and they improve on the river. On the other hand, it's just going to be some suited combos, so there's not that many combos available. But when he checks back the turn, I think it's going to be quite unlikely he has ace king plus, although he might check some sets of aces and so on. So yeah, I think this card probably improves our range more than his, and I think he's also quite capped on the turn, so I would say we are allowed to overbet here with our range, because we're gonna, have hands that want to overbet, and this one would definitely make it into our overbetting range, maybe something like 1.5x spot, 1.8x spot, something like that. So yeah, I would like to see a bigger overbet than this. I think people are going to be quite inelastic here, especially if they hold an ace. So if we go 31 or 40, I would assume they're gonna call pretty much the same range. So yeah, I think if you check in mass database analysis, this is also going to be quite an overcalled spot when it goes check raise call, check check turn, and we bet river. So yeah, I like the line. I would just like to see, a bigger overbet on the river. and he calls with ace-9. Okay, I think it's quite a nice hand to look into with our solver friend. So what are we playing here? Button versus big blind. And board was ace. I hope my neighbors are not starting to do holes in their walls right now when I'm streaming. Okay, so we already see a decent frequency of donking from the big blind, meaning this is quite a decent board for out of position, but we're going to take this out. Although I would implement donks in this spot, not really on this ace-high board texture. Of course, if you want to look into that and implement it, that's perfectly fine. Let me close that door because the kids got out to play. If you decide to check call on this turn, would you fold versus big size all in? Do you mean this in this hand we're looking at right now, ace 5-4? So I guess what you're asking is, okay, let's go back to the hand. I guess what you're asking is, if we check here, he bets, we call, and then on the river, he shoves. Well, if the river is a 5, of course, I would call. If it's better to go 33 and 33, I think it will be an option. Again, let's see with the solver. I think that would also be an option. We don't have the net advantage, but we still have hands that want to bet. For that size, we can also bet ace-5, 4-5. So yeah, I think it would be an option. Again, based on population tendencies, I think they are likely to call bigger bets on the river if we check and then just overbet. Therefore, why I don't really like the small overbet size. But yeah, what you said, I think it will definitely be an option as well. So we see a big raise size, solver likes as well. And if we look at our range, you see we do have some 4x. 4-5 though seems to be a pure call, which is quite surprising to me, but I think it's also going to have to do with the fact that he's not really betting all that often. He's checking 73% of his range. So I guess what this implies is that our threshold for check raising is going to be quite high. You see, it's actually ace-5. Yeah, in practice, if opponents bet more frequently than they should, which I think it's quite likely, then I think it's more than fine to check raise 5-4. He calls. And again, like you see, he's supposed to start folding ace-king, ace-queen. Pretty much every ace at some frequency, which is quite mad. I don't think this happens in practice. I don't think people realize, how tight big blinds should be and that these combos are already losing EV. I don't really expect pretty much anyone, especially at lower stakes, to fold an ace here. So yeah, I think that's even another argument to check raise 5-4. Now we see we can even go 3/4. I'm not sure about our hands though, because as we can see, we don't ever check raise it. So let's no lock. So yeah, now we see if we don't block the missed backdoors, apparently, we want to keep betting, but it will be a mix, so pretty much as thought. And we can actually go a bit bigger than 33, which is good to know, but it's not like most turns where we check raise flop and we can just spot or overbet the turn, because it's quite bad for us. If we do check, he checks back. River is a 4. So we see it does improve a lot of our check raise check range. Yeah, I didn't look at frequency here. I would expect it would be a bit lower, especially for this size, but yeah, apparently we can bet a bit more often than I expected. When it goes check check, river's a 4, this really improves our range. So we don't really have small sizes. This is, again, not a spot we are interested in value betting thin. So we're either going to have this small overbet or a huge one for an all-in size, and I think this would make sense. Even if we don't go all-in, we should definitely bet bigger, I would say. And yeah, this is probably going to maximize our EV. Okay, if you guys have any questions about this hand. You were thinking on 10% on the river, why is that? Exploitative thing, but what are you trying to exploit? Because if you look at data, what you see is that people actually under raise river, especially as a bluff. So if you're trying to induce a raise, I think, especially the way the hand went, I think it's very likely they would just call with an ace and you're going to lose a bunch of value by going so small. Okay, let's go back to the hands. So because we are supposed to check raise, Dumaral says because we are supposed to check raise with our best two pairs. What is because we are supposed to check raise? I'm not sure what you're saying. Okay, open cutoff with queens. We get 3-bet by the button. We go for a 4-bet, which is going to be the most frequent play with queens. We can call sometimes in these positions, but yeah, 4-betting is probably the more frequent play. We're gonna go here for a range bet. I would also go for a range bet, so I like the play. He calls. Turn is a deuce of clubs. Quite an interesting spot here, I would say, because the king is really good for us, and even though we range bet, I think we are still allowed to value bet quite thin on the turn, in general, on a blank turn at least. Now, when the flush gets there, we probably need to be a bit more careful, but still, we do have the queen of clubs, which is quite relevant, because he's not going to have all that many combos here per total, and just blocking the queen of clubs, blocking stuff like king queen of clubs, ace queen of clubs, queen jack of clubs, queen 10 he might call here, although he shouldn't really have that. Yeah, ace queen with the queen of clubs also. So I think it's quite a good card to have, and yeah, he will still have stuff like 7 8 6 7 ace 5 jacks with a club, 10s with a club, and all those other other under pairs that will have to call once again here. So I think it makes sense to go for another small bet with queens. I think checking also makes sense, of course, but I'm just trying to highlight it is something to think about, and I don't think it's a spot where we just want to go for a pure check. I think we probably want to bet more often if we had another queen, not the queen of spades, because we'd also block king queen, because it's mostly going to be suited, right? So, yeah. I think queens with one queen of club and the other one of another suit would probably be bad quite often, but again, something we can check a bit later. And now we face a 1/3 bet. We decide to call. I think it's going to be a pure call if we play like this. We check, and he goes for a shove. Yeah, as played, I think this is going to be quite a good spot to call this. Because, first of all, it might be the spot where people don't really go thin enough for value. So I imagine if he had king queen here, he wouldn't bet the turn and then shove river. I think most people would still be afraid of stuff like ace king, right? And then, okay, he could have some flushes, but we are blocking them really, really well with our queen of clubs. Also, he can't really have ace 5, which is like a flush with ace 5, because, yeah, it's blocked by the board. And then he does have quite some, you know, bluff candidates like ace x of clubs, ace queen with a club like 6-7, 7-8. You know, it's not that difficult. Like, it doesn't take a genius to bluff those hands. So yeah, I guess this is a spot where we should start counting combos. Quite a good thing to do off table. But yeah, just at the first glance, you know, there's not that many flushes, and there is quite a big amount of possible bluffs. And if you see here, we only need to be good 1 out of 4 times, basically, in order to make this a profitable call. So yeah, I think against a decent opponent, we should probably call this. But we fold. Let's see if the solver agrees with us or not. So it's going to be hijack versus button for bet pot. I think these ranges are not gonna be that accurate. I don't think people 3-bet this kind of 4-bet this kind of things enough. So yeah, maybe let's just keep it like this. And this could be accurate, so what was it? King 6-5 with clubs. You see, we can just range bet for a quarter. Quite an easy scenario, and he's actually supposed to call pretty much all his under pairs with a club, and even some without a club. Ace queen as well, if it has a club, is pretty much always a call. But you can already see there's not that many flushes in his range. Like, it's just not that many combos. So he calls, turns the deuce. Let's see how often queens continue betting here. Okay, so never. Although you see tens and jacks sometimes betting. I guess this is because that doesn't need as much protection. Still, if you look at DV, you see it makes sense to bet the one with the club and the other suit as we said initially, which is, yeah, nice to see. Check, he bets small. You see he's supposed to bet very thin for value here, trying to get protection and thin value, of course. We see queens is pretty much a pure call with a club. Also without a club, we're supposed to call sometimes. shoving at some low frequency as well, which seems a bit weird. Not sure how good it would work in practice if people don't really value bet thin enough here. And then river was... what was the river? A deuce. So we check again, and seeing this, I think it's very, very unlikely we fold our combo ever, because we're even splitting with some value. Like, he's supposed to go very thin for value, and like, look at this. Okay, these are flushes. Never mind. Yeah, so queens with the club are going to be a pure call. And I think unless we are playing versus big nits, we should probably make it in practice in this spot too. Sorry for closing this. Let's go back to hold the manager. So yeah, in game we folded. Let's go next hand. We open 2 big blinds, get 3-bet by the small blind, and we call jacks. I don't think this will ever be a 4-bet. You would see some weird 4-bets with 10s. That's actually like a value bluff. I mean, it will get called by ace king, maybe some ace queen, and some lower pairs sometimes, but it is supposed to get jacks to fold. So yeah, you might see that in the ranges. Jacks are probably gonna be a pure call. Queen 7-5. He goes for a half pot bet, which is already, a bit worrying, because it just indicates he doesn't bet range here. And it's a very tight position spot, so I think a lot of people just really overvalue jacks here. Tens in this position should actually be a frequency 3-bet, and nines and below are very, very infrequent. Ace queen, king queen gets there, and also we block a bunch of bluffs like king jack, ace jack, and also we don't really have any good turns with this hand, so I think it's going to be a bit overrated in these positions. I would not be surprised if we can even fold it on the flop against a half pot, but we do go for a call. There's a 10, and he goes for another small bet, and I think even though the bet is small and it seems like a good hand, I think we are supposed to fold it. Again, we block a lot of bluffs. We don't really have any good run-outs, and we are in a very tight position spot where we have better defense as well, so yeah. I like the fold, and maybe it would even make sense to fold on the flop, but we'll check that as well. Going back to a solver, 3-bet, small blind versus MP, good enough. It's gonna be small blind versus under the gun, but actually it will be quite different. I guess it will dictate if we want to fold the flop or not. So let's see first against this strategy. We never fold, and if we make it half pot, okay, so I said in the analysis that this indicates he's not betting range. I'm actually quite surprised we can go for a range bet. I think the reason here is going to be that we have out of position has ace queen off pure, and in position is never calling it. It's going to be a small amount of 4-bet or fold, so this is why these queen high boards become much better in 3-bet pots against earlier positions compared to late positions. If we switch, then it's going to be, the other way around, because now he's going to have all the top pairs, a bunch of more suited top pairs, and also king queen offsuit. So yeah, it's going to get much worse. But here, apparently he's allowed to bet for half pot and range bets. Therefore, we don't really fold jacks. But if you look at the EV, of course, it's still significant, but not huge. You see tens, nines are already folding on the flop. And then I expected this size to be the one used. We see in game our villain went 1/3. Which is already suspicious to me, to be honest. When I see these sizes, I think he either has, I don't know, aces or something and he's very bad and he's scared, or he wants to double barrel something like queen jack. I think it's very weird to say it. Some people are going to be quite mergy with it and basically turn their hand face up, and we see now it's basically a 0 EV call. But yeah, I think in game I'm happier with the call than the solver is. Okay, not a lot of interaction today, not a lot of questions. Let's just keep and do the next hand. Probably gonna wrap it up after this. And I wanted to let you guys know that from starting next week, what I'm thinking of doing is to basically split the streams into two sections, where the first one is going to be on YouTube and the second one is going to be on our Discord channel. So if you're not on our Discord channel yet, make sure you join it. We're going to post a section about our CFP soon. We are running a small CFP and we are looking forward to take more students. I think it's going to be really good value. So yeah, if you're interested in that, you can find more details on Discord, or yeah, obviously get in touch with us. Also, as you hopefully know already, you can send me hands for this stream on Discord and I can go over them. That being said, the last hand, let's make it a nice one. A limp. This indicates a recreational. Obviously, really nice to see we're playing against the rack. We go for a big ISO. He calls. Board is queen, jack, 8. He checks and we decide to go for a small bet. I think the small bets in position against recreationals were quite good. Especially if we have some kind of equity, they tend to overcall the flop, then overfold the turn, which is bad if we have a complete trash hand like 5-4, because even though they overfold the turn, we already invest money into the pot to get them to that spot. So if we have a trashy hand, that's not great, but if we have a hand like this that has, it's a double gut shot with an overcard, quite backdoor flash draw, quite a lot of equity. So I do like the bet. Villain calls, turns the deuce, and we see a pot size donk. This is quite interesting. A lot of times these spots are going to be a bunch of mergy trash and air. Some people are just going to do that with value, and there is where the value of actually observing recreationals and taking notes and trying to, look for patterns in that game. There's where in these kind of spots, those practices show their values. So yeah, here I don't think there's that much for us to do. I mean, we have a very, very strong draw now, and we can be against air sometimes or a worse draw. Obviously the SPR is really low, and I think against most fish we do have some fold equity. If we were against a huge nit here and we played against him a lot and we know he's never doing this without a value hand, then I think we just want to call and obviously get our money in if we hit, because what we're doing otherwise is just putting a lot of money into the pot without any fold equity. But against most recreationals that are capable of doing this with complete air, I mean, not most recreationals, because when we see a pot size bet, it is actually quite concerning, and a lot of them are not gonna bluff for this size. But then if we are against a whale that is all over the place, I think we should shove this at this SPR. So yeah, obviously don't fold. We do shove, he calls. And we win against 6 deuce. Okay, wanted to make the last hand a nice one. I would say it's nice enough. I enjoyed it. Hopefully you did too. Fasty said, check back, rec player, never bluffing, must call. I mean, this is the type of thing I'm talking about. We can't say really he's never bluffing, and yes, he called this hand, but we're probably ahead of this on the turn. Let's see. So yeah, we are basically flipping. And it's not guaranteed that all recreationals would just like bad call this hand. Some of them will find the fold here. So yeah, against this type of whales, definitely shoving is fine. But otherwise, if we're facing a tight guy that we, or someone with huge sizing tells that we don't really expect to get a fold from, I think Festi is right and we should just go for a call. Okay, this was the last hand for the session. Hope you guys enjoyed. Leave 6-2, have to make a note, yeah, for sure. And then this turn, the check call on the flop, like, also, he calls, calls for big blind with 6-2 without any backdoor, so yeah, this guy is definitely a huge whale. A lot of notes to take here. Good point, Fasti. Okay, yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the stream. Again, looking forward to meet you on our Discord and connect there a bit more. I didn't really receive a lot of hands for these sessions. So yeah, if you guys have some hands, I would be happy to look over them. Bye bye and see you next week with another stream.